also look at the latest trends driving the change in consumer behavior and how it has impacted the industry's growth. Covering a gamut of areas across the entire digital ecosystem, this summit intends on bringing all the major stakeholders under one roof and conduct meaningful knowledge sharing sessions, which helps the industry in growing. We have an exciting 5-day lineup with sessions packed with some of the best names of the industries. Before we move forward, we request you all to kindly check the agenda for the day on Digital Brand Fest Summit website and check out the sessions planned out at the summit. We encourage our viewers to share the questions for the speakers in the comment section or on the events chat box. You can share your perspective on the day through our social media accounts, and don't forget to tag us at ITV News with a Z on Twitter and Facebook and IndianTelevision.com on Instagram and LinkedIn. You can use the hashtag DigitalBrandFest2022. None of this would have been possible without the tremendous support of our partners, and we would like to thank them all. Our presenting partner Boot, our industry support partner Interact, a product of GeoHaptic, Josh, and Pixis. This event is produced and executed by ITV 2.0 Productions. Now let's have a look at a few partners AV. Benny, can we have the AV please?
एक तरफ तस्वीर, एक तरफ तकदीर और बीच में आपका नाचीज कटपीस रणवीर।
Tiger is back.
The big picture, तस्वीर से तकदीर तक।
It's here and I'm so excited. Yeah!
Oh.
मेरे साथ बिग बॉस OTT के मजे लूट।
तेरे मेरा कुछ चक्कर चल रहा है क्या?
क्या कर रही है तू मेरा? साइको यार।
गेम बहुत लंबा जाएगा लोग।
Oh God, I'm so confused.
अब तो बताना ही पड़ेगा।
Where y'all up this Valentine?
That's what mutual funds are.
साहिल is dead. सुना तुमने? साहिल is dead.
यहाँ पर ओरिजिनलिटी भी है और करोड़ों दिलों का एंटरटेनमेंट भी है।
Thank you, Vinny. Well, now without much further ado, let's begin our Power Day with our first panel discussion of the day on engaging communities and driving culture through social media. And for the session, I would like to welcome our esteemed speakers, Mr. Akshat Sahu, Director Marketing from ShareChat, Ms. Himanshi Tandon, Head of Brand Marketing from ClearTrip. We have Ms. Khatija Lokhanwala, Head of Marketing from Zivame, Mr. Manikanta Yadavali, VP of Growth from Trell, Mr. Rupesh Jain, CEO and founder, Kandel by Kalyan Jewelers, Ms. Shreya Sajrid, Head of Marketing from Puma India. This session will be moderated by Mr. Kusal Maladi, Vice President of Madison Digital. I welcome you all and over to you, Mr. Maladi. Sir, you are on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you so much. Welcome everyone. Let's kickstart today's discussion. So before we start off, just a question. You'll probably not answer this right now, but just think about the answer. So when we say social media, what is the first name that comes to your mind? Like, what was that first social media platform that you can remember from back in the day? MySpace? Was it Friendster? For most of us, it's probably Orkut, right? Orkut is something that really kicked off social media for us in India. But something that really changed the face of social media and the way we advertise on social media, the way we look at social media, engage on social media is probably Facebook. Gave us numbers, and at a point of time, having a social media strategy pretty much meant having your presence on Facebook, probably having your presence on Twitter, and that was it. It was about how we gain followers on these platforms, and we moved on from there. It was about putting really interesting creatives there, gaining followers, moving on. Since then, multiple platforms have entered the fray, right? There's been Snapchat, there's been Pinterest that's come up. But in the last 24 months, things have changed dramatically. There was TikTok that really revolutionized social media, especially in small towns. Social media started seeing a lot of traffic coming from small towns. And when TikTok went off, there were a lot of homegrown short video platforms that took over. There's been Moj, there's been Takata, Josh, Trell, and many others, to name a few. Social commerce has also seen a jump, and that's a topic that people are talking about today. Trell and ShareChat are already entering this arena, and it'll be very interesting to see where this goes. Now, if you have to just talk in terms of numbers, if our overall internet population is about 650 million, platforms like a Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube claim about 450 odd million active users every month. ShareChat claims about 180 to 200 million users, and these are big numbers. So with these numbers, marketers have a lot of choice, and with a lot of choice comes the headache of having to make a lot of decisions. So social media is no longer really about getting followers. It's as mainstream as it gets, right? It could be about building awareness for the brand. It could be about building consideration for the brand. It could be about selling the brand on social media. It could be everything. It could be one of the things. So that's something that we'll try answering today. And we have a fantastic panel with us. We have people from the marketing side. We also have people from the platform side. We've already been introduced to the team. Just very quickly, Rupesh, from the marketing side, we have Rupesh from Kalyan Jewelers, Himanshi from Cleartrip, Shreya from Puma, Khatija from Zivame. On the platform, social platform side, we have Akshat from ShareChat and Manikanta from Trell. So we'll not waste much time. Let's get straight into the discussion, right? So Rupesh, let's start off with you. What is your opinion on the way we use social media today? So when we started off social media and we were trying to get followers, we probably had like a 60, 70, 80% interaction rate. So if I had 100 followers, 70, 80 of them would see my post. That dropped from 80 to 50 to 20 to less than 1% today. So does it even make sense investing in a social content strategy, or is it only about putting the monies and seeing the magic? Over to you.
Hey, thank you so much, Kosal, for asking this question. I would like to tell a very clear point here that social has become a very integral part of our entire brand mix strategy now. And it is so very important for us that without social media, we cannot even think any of our strategy, because that's the most first thing that we'll have to put into place. So you rightly mentioned that our organic reach has gone down drastically on the social platforms, and that is the way the platforms are going to make money. But having said that, the entire content strategy is very, very important now, because even for putting the money on the platform, what is going to work, you should know what organic content really works for us. If that 1% of your reach is coming from X content, then it makes a lot of sense in putting a lot of money on that particular content piece instead of putting it anywhere else. So it's going to be an integral part. So having a social content strategy is very, very important according to our brand strategy, because our social calendars are in place. Our entire customer feedback comes from there. It also becomes a very important platform to build trust with our customers. There are a lot of insights that we get from customers on the platform that really helps us in internally streamlining our processes. So we take it for our design team. So social becoming a clear platform for us to take feedback on designs. Social is also becoming the voice of the customer, where if our internal processes are not in place, then we need to work on those and make sure that they are also in place. So all in all, Kusal, I think it's going to be a very critical part. The content strategy has to be in place, and this is your content strategy, then your paid strategy also can work. So that's my submission. Kusal, I think you're, yeah, can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry, I lost you in between. Yeah, I could just had a slight drop in connection. Yeah, sorry, go on. Yeah.
So I just made my submission that social content strategies is really important. And if you have your content strategy in place, then your paid strategy also can be streamlined.
So just a follow-up question on that. When you, let's say you are investing in making, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 posts a month or whatever that number is, how do you decide on that number and how many would you actually promote? Sure. How do you decide which ones to promote?
So that is a very clear-cut process in the organization today. Once we start posting and we have understood that what is the time on which the people engage the most on the post. So once we start seeing the engagement on that time, and we have a very clear A/B testing going on our post. And once we see that after a week, if your post is working well, then the entire paid strategy comes into picture, and then we start promoting it. So it's a clear-cut time strategy and then your engagement strategy that helps us in putting more money.
Got it. Thanks so much. So just taking off from there, Himanshi, I'd like to know, since we're talking about paid, how we do A/B testing to select our posts, and then we put our money behind these posts. So Himanshi, from your perspective, how do you look at social media? And when you're promoting anything on social media, how do you look at the overall funnel? How do you decide how much to put on performance, how much to put on awareness campaigns? Do you think a performance campaigns is also adding to awareness, so you needn't promote, have a separate awareness campaign? So I'd love to have your POV on this.
Sure. Thanks, Kaushal, for the question. I think for me, the answer lies in full funnel marketing and tailoring our messaging and our interventions across, top, middle, and bottom funnels at each stage of the funnel, right? It isn't just about doing more across each stage of the funnel. It's about understanding how each stage impacts the others to deliver a complete consumer experience. And I feel the key to winning this or deciding where to put the monies is in a unified set of KPIs, which can help unlock the value that we are getting from each of these collated efforts. So for example, when you are driving an awareness campaign, then is that awareness impacting traffic or is it impacting purchases? Are we seeing higher searches? Are we seeing higher click shares, or are we seeing the goodness and reduced CPAs down the funnel? So answering a lot of these questions through a unified set of KPIs is what helps us understand that which are these interventions or engagements or interactions at the top funnel or the middle funnel level, which are most closely linked to driving business value. And doing this is what helps us make smarter decisions to adjust the marketing spends.
Got it. But how do you stay away from, see, technically, if I set up a campaign that's driving bottom of the funnel, in the short term, I'm probably seeing a much better cost per whatever the final conversion is, right? But that also means that I'm cutting down on the number of people I'm reaching out to because my platform is optimizing it. So how do you distinguish between winning in the short term and winning in the long term? Because what you're talking about is you set up a campaign from an awareness perspective and so on and so forth, see how the conversion happens down the funnel. But that probably also means in the short term, you're getting a higher cost per conversion. So how do you try and balance it out?
Yeah, in fact, both in the short and the long term, I feel, Kaushal, this full funnel approach works. because if you just keep on going bottom of the funnel, it's going to dry up very, very soon, right? And to be honest, I think in the last 3 to 4 years, there were quite a few big companies, and there are researchers that support this, that there were companies who were trying to go very, very middle and bottom funnel only kind of an approach. And even they realized that unless you keep fueling the top of the funnel, there wouldn't be enough users who will get trickled down, because you have to feed that top funnel for those people to get into the middle funnel, drive the right kind of product interventions and engagements in the middle funnel, for that person to eventually come and get converted with you, or to be able to remarket to that consumer. So you're absolutely right. There's a need to invest in it, both in the short and the long term, because even when you're starting out this journey, for example, as a new brand, then also you need awareness, you need discovery to be able to get enough people to convert.
Got it. Thanks for that. Just another thing I'd like to touch upon, and probably Shreya can step in here. Another very important thing on social media is influencers. So as a fashion brand, how do you use influencers? That's something that we'd be very curious to know.
Sure.
And also, what are the sort of KPIs you would put?
Sure. Okay, so maybe let me answer that in two parts. I think the first is really, for us to sort of realize that this definition of influencer itself is super, super fluid, right? And I was just talking to somebody the other day where we said, shows like Shark Tank have pretty much sort of changed the definition of celebrity and changed the definition of how we look at people that actually have influence and how they wield that influence, right? So I think the first step for any brand, and even ours, is to re-look at this definition of influencer and understand what that really means, right? And how you really want to use them to wield influence for yourself. And it's no longer about just a style influencer or just a fitness influencer, right? I think that definition is very, very vast and can be used very differently and creatively, right? Now, coming specifically to the fashion segment and to our brand, which probably falls in a more, premium space, I think our strategy is a bit different from, say, maybe a beauty brand, right? That would probably use influencers to drive product conversion, because, product prices and ticket sizes are much smaller in that sense. And so, doing a lot of grassroots influencer marketing to even drive conversion makes a lot of sense. For a brand like ours, I think, and agree with what Himanshi was saying, I think digital marketing helps solve a lot of things today across the funnel, right? And so for us, looking at influencers from just a lens of conversion probably doesn't make sense, right? We're probably setting up that marketing channel for failure then. I think for us, as a brand, building that awareness funnel, having an authentic brand position and voices that help us amplify that brand positioning is where an influencer would really play a role, right? So I would not go to an influencer today and say, help me sell my products. I would go to an influencer and say, hey, I'm doing this campaign and here is the positioning or the messaging that I really want to drive home with my consumers. And can you find a way to help me amplify that message, which is authentic to you, right? Because your followers follow you basis the kind of content that you put out. And if I were to benefit from some of that goodness, I need to leverage the way you communicate with your influencers and what with your audience and what you talk about, right? So I think for us, using influencers, and again, keeping that definition very wide, is really about understanding, what are the authentic brand messages that we want to drive home to our audience and to their audience, and how can those influencers very authentically, in a way that is their forte, help us communicate that, right? So I think that's really where I would see influencer marketing for us today, as opposed to maybe a lot of other brands who I think, given the nature of what they're selling and the industry they're in, might look at it slightly differently.
Fair point. And when you say authenticity of the influencers, how do you actually ascertain that they're authentic and they're probably not talking about your brand today and competition tomorrow and something else the day after?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a challenge, right? And I think one of the ways that
we evaluate who we want to partner with is also how much do what they talk about overlap with what we talk about, right? So, for example, if there's somebody who fits in with, say, our philosophy of Proper Lady, right, which is our women's campaign that talks about being unapologetically yourself, right, then I would find influencers in the space who actually embody that concept, right, who talk about that regularly, whether it's embracing, the body size you are, or it's embracing who you are, taking a stand against anybody who's shaming you for anything. And I would then sort of, partner with them, and ask them to sort of give their twist to this philosophy, right? I think that's really the way that I would look at, how to identify people that work for us as a brand.
Got it. Makes a lot of sense. Thanks for that. So actually talking about influencers and conversations that they drive, I'd love to hear Khatija's point of view here. Khadija is representing Zivame, and it's probably a category that's not spoken so much about in our country, right? There's always that sense of, but how do I talk about this? So in a category like this, how do you actually drive conversations? It'll be very, very interesting to know that.
Hi, Kaushal, and hi, everybody else. So, like you rightly mentioned, intimate wear, has traditionally been considered a very taboo topic, right? And conversations do happen, but in very, very hush-hush manner. Even today, a lot of women are going to hesitate to even say the word bra out loud in public, right? And one of our missions has always been that how do we kind of make conversations in this category more mainstream and real, right? Two key things that we actually, bank upon regularly to kind of help us in this mission. First one is that you package the content or the information in a way that is a little more palatable to the consumer. Whether that packaging is in a manner which is more quirky, you're using humor and not cringe, but something that is going to be a little more acceptable for consumers to engage and interact with, it makes it easier for the brands to start a conversation. Second is delivering the message, through real personas who consumers can connect with. Like Shreya was mentioning, I think every brand uses influencer marketing very differently, right? So when it comes to Zivame, influencer marketing, of course, is a critical piece of the work that we do. But the way that we look at influencer marketing is that, consumers look up to them, they aspire to be them, they follow them. And the conversations that these influencers are driving, right? The topic of that conversation, suddenly for consumers becomes very okay, very acceptable. It normalizes the conversation in a very large way, it changes mindsets, and it also helps take that conversation outside of the social media platform. So, these two things. One critical thing that social media itself, has enabled, brands is that, especially brands, within, spaces which are considered sensitive, the first interaction with the consumer is very personal. Like all of us browse social on our individual devices, right? So any content which feels perceived as sensitive, right, is done in a very personalized environment, and therefore consumers are a little more comfortable to engage and, consume that content. Kaushal, sorry, I'm not able to hear you. I think you're on mute.
Sorry. I was saying, how do you define a personalized environment? You're talking more from a handheld devices.
Yeah, because like whether it's an Instagram, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, all of us are doing it on our individual devices, right? It's not a shared thing that you're doing with two other people. So the content that you're consuming is done in a very personalized space. So therefore, any content that is conceived as sensitive is, is being served in a very personal environment. And therefore, it becomes easier for them to engage with that content in that environment.
Got it. Thanks for that. Now, let's move on to Akshat. So Akshat represents ShareChat. And ShareChat is one platform that has presence across India, right? It's not just metros. In fact, the way they've positioned also is about having presence in tier 2, tier 3 towns. And that's something that's seen a lot of growth in the last 2 years. So Akshat, do you want to talk about how you see this in evolving?
Yeah, I think the last 24 months have actually really accelerated the adoption of internet, right? Especially in the tier 2, tier 3 towns and as you go ahead and get more people online, you will see a lot more people who are comfortable with Indic languages joining both online on all platforms, yeah, including social media. So in fact, this is not only a rural phenomena where people generally believe that only tier 2, tier 3 towns are actually engaging online in Indic languages. In fact, almost 50% of urban active internet users are also interacting in Indic languages, right? So there has been a huge surge of Indic languages in internet users online. However, I think uh, at least what we have understood from our clients and brands and advertisers is that there is a limited information on how do you interact and engage with these users, right? In fact, there are a lot of myths which a lot of brands have around these Indic language internet users, starting from they're not very affluent, they're not educated, they're not digitally savvy, and most of these myths we've actually found are not correct, right? In fact, last month we released a report with Group M called Bharat the New India, which actually talks about the user behavior and the preferences of this Indic language internet user, which we prefer to call as Bharat, right? And how they are interacting online, how they are actually using digital modes of payment, how UPI has revolutionized how they are interacting online. And brands are now coming up to speed with how do we engage with them. And most of the times what we have seen is that it's not necessary the same strategy you apply for a English language internet user who's probably been online for 5 to 6 years or even maybe more. The same strategy may not work for this Indic language internet user, right? I think some of the key points which we want brands to actually note would be number one, actually you have to speak in their language, right? Translating or dubbing your campaigns or your communication really doesn't work because every language has its own nuance and every language connects better. There is a reason why they are comfortable in engaging in their own language. Respecting cultural nuances, another is a big point, and we've seen a lot of brands go wrong with that in a lot of communication which has happened in the past few months and even a few years. Another point, and since we're talking about influencers, I think there is now a host of regional language micro influencers which are now available online for a lot of brands to interact and engage with. I think the shift is happening from using star celebrity influencers only to create mass awareness versus driving deeper engagement with regional language micro influencers. And we've actually got a lot of feedback from brands whenever they've actually done mass associations with, let's say, 500 or 1000 micro influencers which are language based influencers, and how they've got better and higher engagement, right? And obviously choosing the right platform obviously is a more important thing. So I think that's the learning which we have had in the last few months, especially in the last 12 months. I think some brands, specifically in the OTT content media space, who've obviously been making content in languages, understand this audience better. But a lot of product brands, lifestyle brands, are learning and understanding how to engage with this audience.
Got it. So Akshat, just to follow up to that, you said there are a lot of myths we are trying to break, right? And also, I think for a lot of us marketers who sit in a Mumbai or a Delhi or a Bangalore, we somehow perceive that somebody who's not speaking English is not up there, or they're probably not premium enough for me. So do you see a lot of premium brands also being present on your platforms? And what are the sort of results that
that's the myth which we are trying to break, Kushal.
Yeah.
And, while we don't have a lot of premium brands on our platform currently, but the value which this audience offers, right, is the same which an English speaking audience offers. The disposable incomes are similar, and I'm sure from a jewelry brand, you'll also know, right, that small towns are as savvy and as aspirational to improve their lifestyles, whether it's got to do with auto or jewelry or mobile phones, etc. In fact, 46% of Indic language users were actually purchased a mobile phone in the last 1 year online, right? So these perceptions are there because you rightly said we are sitting in a Bombay and Delhi and possibly haven't had the chance to interact or engage with this new user online, right? And there are perceptions which are there. However, whenever a financial brand or any other brand, auto brand, etc., has done any activity with us, they've always come back, right? E-commerce brands, I think, quite successful on our platform, have had got huge success because this new set of user is as digitally savvy and as affluent as any other user we have seen. So we believe that it's a start, and slowly more and more brands will start using platforms to interact with these Indic language users.
Got it. So in fact, I think I want to just ask all the marketers, just since the topics come up. We have, I mean, of course, Rupesh, Khatija, Shreya, anyone, please feel free to add. As marketers, do you think there is a perception that you need to break internally about being present on Indic languages? What is your POV? Because it's not just share chat, right? Like we know for a fact that YouTube, for example, has launched a small town pack, and so have all advertisers. So is there a perception that you believe that needs to be broken?
So, Kushal, internally in our organization, we have seen a lot of traction coming from tier 2, tier 3 cities, and as rightly mentioned by Akshat, jewelry being a commodity which is seeing a lot of traction internally also, and in these cities, I think people are responding well on their regional content. So we have started making contents on regional languages now, and we are seeing higher engagement rates and better people getting into our marketing funnel. So I think that should be the way forward. Even Google claims in their seminars very clearly that they are also going hyper local in all of their campaigns going forward. So I think Akshat is on the right track. I think regional content is going to be a big play in the country now, because once you have to grow your audience size, you will have to get into that particular segment. Otherwise, a lot of e-com brands are only going to fight for that piece of consumers who is very minuscule currently, but we are going to pump a lot of money only for that particular user. But there is a lot of users who are untapped in the market now. So I think that should be the way forward.
Thanks.
I would like to add.
Sorry.
Yeah, go on, please.
Go ahead, Himanshi, go ahead.
Okay. Now, I was saying that particularly to your question that, how are things internally? I would say internally, it's the opposite for us. We don't face that challenge because constantly, going back to Akshat's point, this discussion that this initiative or this action is going to impact India, but will it also impact Bharat? So that conversations have constantly started happening, that whatever actions we are taking, whatever we are thinking, whatever we are planning for tomorrow and day after and the next year, everything should be taking into consideration. So it's no more that space where we were 5 years back, right? That, okay, which is the next, next million consumers and stuff like that. It is today. It is something that, is being discussed in every boardroom today, at least, in the industries that I'm talking to. Yeah, sorry, Khatija, go on.
What I was just going to say that actually I disagree with Kaushal to a certain extent that, if it's a premium brand and the content is actually in vernacular, it takes away from the imagery or the premiumness of the brand. I don't think it does that. No matter what price point the brand operates in, the vernacular is basically helping you connect with an audience. And I'm pretty sure tier 2, tier 3 markets, there'll be a larger chunk of audiences who will be able to afford premium brands. So it does not take away from, the aspiration or the premium imagery, of even higher priced brands.
In fact,
I'm actually happy to hear you say that, because that's not my opinion. I'm just saying this is a concept we hear quite a bit. I'd love to break this myth.
Our study actually says that nearly 40% of metro users also want to interact in Indic languages, right? So language is something which is inherently there in all our ecosystems, right? It's just that, and it's not just tier 2, tier 3. When we talk about Bharat, it's not tier 2, tier 3, right? There is enough Indic language user even in the metro cities. So language communication is possibly the way to go going forward, even online.
Thanks.
Yeah,
So,
I think just to chime in, because from the brand side, I think completely agree with what Khatija said. I think there is no misconception in terms of language being a barrier to build aspiration or convey premiumness. I think for us also, it's very clear that where your business comes from, you talk to that consumer, right? And we've seen that our consumers respond better actually to our localized content, right? Because that's more relevant. So I think there is no confusion or any sort of debate internally on whether we should go vernacular or not go vernacular. You talk to your consumer in the language that they understand, right? And I think it's just as simple as that.
Yeah. So, in fact, let me just tweak the question a little bit. We all agree that language is not a concern. Is brand safety a concern? Because we hear this quite a bit saying that, "Acha, theek hai, we'll be present in languages, multiple languages, but where is my brand going to be present? If I put my ad out there, I don't know where the brand will go and how will it be perceived." Would that be a concern that the brands would face?
I don't know. So I don't think. Go ahead.
I think brand safety has got anything to do with the tier of user or language in which the user engages with, right? I think all platforms are dealing with brand safety issues at various levels and trying to put mechanisms and verbs in place. But I think you have an equal chance of having an untoward experience on any platform with any segment of user. I really don't think it's got anything to do with the language you are interacting with or any tier user. I think that is also one of the things which we are trying to educate everybody with, right? That the language internet user in tier 3 is as savvy, right?
Yeah.
As somebody in metros. I think one of the days when they were using feature phones and they were not online, right? With the data costs and accessibility to smartphones and the acceleration which has happened in the last 24 months, I think everybody is just online and they know their way. You'll be surprised the kind of interactions which we see on our platform from tier 2, tier 3 towns. In fact, they actually are more active on social media than your English language metro users. They post more, they interact more, they engage more, right? So they're pretty savvy.
Correct. Yeah. So, Himanshi, maybe you can add to this. We were talking about influencers and how they're a part of the marketing mix before, and we clearly when we're talking regional, we've spoken about micro influencers, etc. And you were also talking about having a full funnel approach. So, where do influencers come in your marketing funnel? Top, middle, bottom? How do you, and more importantly, how do you evaluate the effectiveness of these influencers, especially if you're looking at them from a top or mid funnel perspective?
Yeah, thanks, Kaushal. So firstly, I'll build on what Shreya was talking, right? That the definition itself of influencers is expanded, but more so in the travel industry. Because in the travel industry, every single person is a content creator, and a lot of people have been creating excellent content, and so to say, while you might be influenced by the travels that a celebrity is doing or an influencer in the travel space is doing, you also get heavily influenced by the travel that somebody a friend is doing, right? So in the travel space, firstly, everybody is like a content creator, but I think for us, the way we look at winning in the segment, with the 3 R's, like reach, relevance, and resonance. For us, relevance becomes the biggest key to winning in this segment, that how do you drive the relevant message to the relevant consumer through the relevant partnerships that you drive along the journey. And this again translates then to across the funnel, Kausal. So how do you drive the relevant messages around brand love, around creating a desire for travel, around getting that go-getter approach and exploring the world, or driving those relationships that you want to drive through travel? All of that is something that is driving relevance at the top funnel level, right? Whereas when you come to the bottom funnel, it will be more about how do you get that person to purchase and actually go ahead and experience those things. So I feel the key for us is driving relevance across each of these parts of the funnel. And while reach and resonance also stay very important, it is about how you can influence the consumer's decision to move from one funnel to the other, how you can take that person seamlessly. The second driver of this for us is consistency. That I feel, these one-time spikes on influencers that certain brands have been using, that you put your own message out through the influencer, or you just do it once, is something that I think is not the right way to look at influencer strategy. So like Shreya said, it has to be in the voice that the influencer has, so that the people hear them better and hear your brand's version alongside, but also to do that consistently over a period of time with the right set of people, so that it isn't an ad. It is genuinely driving influence among the followers of that particular influencer.
Fair point. So I actually probably want to pick Rupesh's brains here. We've spoken about influencers, but the question is, how much do we invest in them? So today, if I'm investing in a standard post on social media, I'm probably giving a CPM of 30 rupees, 40 rupees, 100 rupees, whatever it is, right? Influencers, how do I put a KPI to it? I mean, of course, there's consistency. We're talking about relevance and so on and so forth. But am I paying a premium? Am I paying the right price? What is the KPI I chase? How do we get to the numbers here?
So, Kaushal, to be very frank and very candid, this is a very difficult question to answer. But it all depends upon what is your main brand objective that you want to drive from the influencers. If it is brand reach, and if your campaign or your budget allows you to really reach a larger audience where your clear objective is about brand awareness, then you really put on the top of the funnel good amount of money. And technically it can be 20 to 25% of the budget, because you really want to reach the market in a massive way. So for example, if you have a budget of approximately 1 crore rupee per month, so you may start investing 10 to 15 lakh rupees on that particular awareness campaign, so that you have decent amount of audience in your top of the funnel. And that's where the number of influencers that you are going to work with is going to count a lot. Similarly, if your brand campaign or your objective is very clear on the interaction sides or on the middle of the funnel part, then you are very clear that you are going to bring the people on the website and make sure that they are interacting with different features on your website. So you start putting your budget according to that, because that's where the audience starts becoming much serious, and they are in your consideration phase. So that is where you start putting your budget into and make sure that your objective is achieved. Similarly, when you are dealing in the bottom of the funnel, it is very clear it's going to be driving to your ROAS and your CPA strategy. And if it is somewhere meeting your goals of CPA and ROAS, then I don't think there is any budget constraints, because you know that putting more money in this particular segment is giving you more and more result. So you keep expanding your budget there. And as soon as you reach your plateau where your more putting of budgets is not helping you, you start understanding that now this is not really helping us, so you will stop there. So it all depends upon your experimentation and adopt to the strategy, and it is a lot of things have to be done runtime during the campaign. So this is how we have learned the entire influencer marketing, and we are adopting and we are learning daily internally here. And still we are crafting our strategy better and better every day, because influencers are also getting adopted, and they are also changing in the market. So we need to change according to what they are doing. And as rightly mentioned by Himanshi, that we should ask our influencer to really talk the relevant language that or the normal flow that they are into, not forcing them to what we really want them as a brand to say. That will really not help their audience to engage with, and similarly the entire brand objective is also not achieved. So this is what we follow internally, Kosal.
Great, thanks. But so in fact, honestly, just 2 bits on my discussion, and this is a question I keep getting asked a lot of times, right? Like, if I can get 3x the reach through standard posts in the same money, why should I do influencers? So that's probably, as you said, it's about experimenting, seeing what is the brand conversion in the long term. But I would tend to agree with you. It has to be a long-term thing. It cannot be a short-term one-off activity. That's where the results come in. Cool, thanks. So Khadija, maybe just want to know your POV on this. So, and in the space you're operating in, there are lots of myths, there are lots of misinformations. How do you really break this? And how do you control the conversations? And is it even possible to control conversations?
Us, honestly, Kaushal, the use of social media is essentially to build a community, which is a safe space for consumers to come, discuss, seek solutions, and ask questions, right? Now, there are multiple ways that we do to kind of help us build this safe space. One, of course, is video content, which is both short form and long form, right? And video content, essentially, what it does is that visually kind of helps us, showcase, the functionality of the product, as well as the emotional payoff that can come from, a person wearing the right intimate wear. I think the biggest struggle in the country is that women right now are not wearing the right intimate wear, from the wrong sizes to the wrong styles, right? So video content kind of helps us, educate and drive awareness of how just the right intimate wear can change your outerwear appearance and can, give you the freedom to do things that you've never done before. Second is we do a lot of expert sessions with the design team itself, right straight from the horse's mouth, where again they're imparting knowledge, imparting information, and giving an opportunity for consumers to seek solutions in real-time basis, right? Because most of these sessions are done, live on Facebook or Instagram. Third, we do again live sessions, not just connected to intimate wear, so not on topics which are around intimate wear or lingerie, but also on topics that are very relevant to a woman's lifestyle, right? Whether it is breast cancer awareness with a doctor, or it is conducting a fashion show, with different body types, right from the influencer's home, or doing something as simple, as a yoga class. But creating these live sessions that adds value to their lives and then makes them a lot more comfortable to start asking, or seeking solutions from the brand or asking questions to the brand. The fourth one would be blogs. I think a lot of teams underestimate the power of blogs. I think blogs, written information, can go a really long way in kind of, like you said, bursting these myths, ensuring that all of the misinformation is kind of getting corrected. And again, blogs not just on topics within the category that you operate, but also on all topics that, may be, relevant in the consumer's life. How do you control, given that social media, everybody has an opinion on social, right? And the category that we operate in, it's a constant monitoring that is required to ensure that, some of the comments that you end up seeing on your post or during live sessions, when there are, certain participants, that are kind of, talking outside of what is being discussed, clear constant monitoring to ensure that, those are taken care of immediately, and, that safe space for your consumer is consistently maintained.
Correct. Thanks so much. I think we're almost done with time, so we'll probably take another 5 minutes. So very quickly, a couple of questions, Shreya. Just building on this, we've spoken about building communities on social and constantly interacting with the users. In your experience, how well does it work? Do you see a lot of organic traction when you build communities? In the short term, in the long term, because I've honestly seen brands where we do live sessions, Facebook live, this live, that live, and so on and so forth, and we have like 20 people come in, and we don't do that again after trying it once or twice. So what do you have? What's your experience?
So in the way I would look at it is every brand needs to solve two things, right? In the short term, you need to you need to solve sales, you need to solve bottom of the funnel conversion, you need immediate results, right? And that's got a lot to do with push marketing, right? I mean, you pump in the money, you reach the right consumer, you sort of show the right products, and that gets converted, right? But in the longer run, you would also want to sort of create this cycle where you're organically attracting the consumer that you want, you're retaining that consumer is continuing to engage with you. And from a long-term perspective, that's actually more value adding, because the lifetime value of an engaged consumer is much, much higher than somebody that you have to consistently market to, right? So the part on push marketing is where I feel a lot of this engaged community marketing sort of sits in, right? And we essentially live in an age where I think our attention spans are now lesser than a goldfish, right? I think the human attention span is 8 seconds now, from what I read last, right? So we're all fighting for the attention of the same set of audiences on the same platforms, right? And from that perspective, actually building an engaged community that is consistent in terms of the way they interact with you, engage with you meaningfully, rather than just a quick scroll and a move on, or a quick tap and a move on, actually has a lot of merit for a brand to invest in from the long-term perspective, right? That's how you build that pull for the brand. And that's almost a low cost or a no cost method in the long run, right? As opposed to pumping in money and converting in the short term, right? So I think you need both for any brand. You need both for any brand to be able to successfully manage all parts of the funnel at any point in time, right? So I really don't think that it's an either or should be an either or at any point. You would want to run these both simultaneously to build for the future while also solving for the short term. And yeah, maybe some of your lives will get lesser people, but some of them will really change people's minds, and these are the people that will come back to you even when you don't market to them, right? That's a big win from a brand perspective as well. So you have to keep building that funnel.
Yeah, thanks so much, Shreya. And one final question, Akshat. What's your POV in terms of long-term, short-term? How do you deal with? Do you have? I know you go heavy on influencers and certain those things. So one is it a challenge explaining to brands that you need to be more long-term when it comes to influencers, etc.? And also, how do you deal? What is the space you see? How social media as a platform will change in the next few years? I mean, you have YouTubes and Facebooks that are trying to enter the same space. You've, of course, shared chat, Mohit, you've recently acquired. So I'm just curious to know your POV.
I think in the next few years we are going to see a burst of short video platforms. We've already seen that in India now, and I think the next few years this is only going to double down with the kind of action and engagement we are seeing on the short video platforms and just short video format in general, right? Whether it's influencer or not, is really changing the landscape on how people are interacting. In fact, what we are seeing is that people are not necessarily going to social media anymore to engage in communities, but mostly to go and discover and engage with content which is to their interest, right? So there was an earlier algo with when social media started, which was about making one-to-one connections and building communities. While that there is a use case for that and that exists. However, I think the new age social media is not necessarily about connecting with people who you know and like-minded interests, but discovering and engaging with content which interests you, right? And the new algos actually enable the feed in such a way that if I like comedy, then I will be served more comedy videos, irrespective of who I follow and I don't follow, right? So this brings in a whole new dynamic and a whole new way in which people are interacting. In fact, a recent study we did, with our social media users in general, more than 70% people on social media are not looking for anything in particular, right? They are going there, they're surfing a lot of content, and they're looking at a lot of videos which they find interesting and they engage with. So that's a I think a significant shift from when you were talking about how we looked at social media from a Orkut or a Facebook point of view, right? And therefore, I think video and specifically short video has really emerged as the key platform for all brands to engage and interact with. And when it comes to short video, there is a lot of engagement which happens with these micro influencers, right? Brand collaborations is one definite way in which these creators can actually add a lot of value to all brands. And like we have been discussing, you have to find the right influencer. You have to make sure that the message is delivered in a very authentic manner, which connects with the community of that influencer, right? You don't want a comic to start talking seriously just because they are endorsing a certain brand. So that is important. And I think while it may seem short term right now, I think long term, this is going to be a strategy which most brands will adopt, right? And we have seen this successfully being implemented by very large brands like Coke and Flipkart and other brands which have partnered with us already, and even smaller brands who want to SMB brands who want to associate with us. They're also starting to use this in a much more effective manner, because there is a lot of value you can see in that, right? There is buzz, there is engagement, and whatever metric you use, there is ROI. So I think that's where we believe the space is heading to.
Thanks. Thank you so much. So if I have to very quickly summarize what we discussed today, we spoke about how we need to look at a full funnel approach on social and not necessarily one part of the funnel. We spoke about how influencers, and we also spoke about how it's not really a short-term thing, but a long-term thing where influencers and communities probably are a part of the long-term approach, while you have a paid part of the funnel, which become your short-term KPIs. We spoke about regional and how it's not and how it's important to break certain myths that we have, be it in terms of the sort of content we see, be it in terms of languages, be it in terms of the industry that we are in, where we need to break certain myths. And glad that we are all on the same page here. And another very, very interesting thing that Akshat pointed out towards the end is that we've now actually become an echo chamber of sorts, where we will end up discovering a lot of what we like. So it's not as much about building a community, but it is about being there to be discovered. So we've spoken about both building communities and being discovered, which is great, because that's two different POVs in a way, but also similar in a way. So thank you so much, everyone. It was a fantastic discussion. I think we are out of time. We are 5 minutes over time. So thank you. Great talking to you. See you.
Thanks.
Anything
thank you.
someone else want? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye. See ya.
Thank you everyone for this mind-stimulating discussion, and I'm sure our audience also enjoyed the discussion a lot and learned a lot from your experiences. Well, that brings us to the end of Digital Brand Fest Summit Day 3. And once again, I would like to thank our partners for their tremendous support. Our presenting partner Boot, our industry support partner Interact, a product of GeoHaptic, Josh, and Fixes. This event is produced and executed by ITV 2.0 Productions. We start the Digital Brand Fest Day 4 sessions tomorrow from 2:30 p.m. onwards. Kindly check the agenda for Day 4 on our website. On behalf of IndianTelevision.com Group, I would like to thank all the speakers and viewers for taking out your time to join us today. We hope you had a fruitful time. Do share your feedback with us. Use the Digital Brand Fest 2022 in your tag and tag official handles. We can be found at ITV News with a Z on Twitter and Facebook, and IndianTelevision.com on Instagram and LinkedIn. We look forward to e-host you tomorrow. Have a good day. Thank you.